Good evening and welcome to VI Voices. I'm Emile Henderson III along with Clint Ferris, born in front of Yoki Hanley. And tonight we continue our election coverage as we have with us tonight Mr. Malcolm McGregor, who is seeking a seat in the 31st legislature of the Virgin Islands, and he's running as a Democrat.
That's correct.
And will be in the Democratic primary come August 2nd. And so we will not be doing hot topics right now, and we'll go straight into talking with Mr. McGregor. Welcome to VI Voices.
Pleasure to be here.
This is your first time on the show.
First time on the show.
And so I thank you for coming on tonight.
Sure.
And as we begin, I would like to know, what is your reason or reasons for seeking public office?
Well, I think the number one issue is that, we all want to do public good, and we can't do it from sitting on the outside. We wish we could, but there's a number of things that structurally we need to change. And I think my vision and my focus is to change the systemic problems in government, of why we have so much frustrations in our community. St. Croix is really hurting and looking for some real leadership. And I'm willing to offer that. I'm willing to step forward and do what I can, given the knowledge that I have that I've worked for the present administration. I know the good, I know the bad that have been done. I've seen the actions of the current legislature and legislatures of the past. I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, and I think that there needs to be a real mesh between the legislative branch and the administrative branch of government. We all need to focus on the real issues that are really affecting our people here in our communities, and work with our delegates and work with the Congress and work with our president so that we can change the conditions in the Virgin Islands, but more so in St. Croix.
But Mr. McGregor,
yes.
You said there need to be a real mesh between the executive branch
Right.
and the legislature. But one can argue, one can actually state that there have been a very good mesh between executive and the legislature for the past 4 terms. 4 terms of the legislature, and that's the reason why we're in the present morass that we are in. Now, how do you, with your experiences from the last legislature, how do you build the people's confidence in you that you can actually come in and perform in this particular legislature?
Well, I think we have to look at things from a different angle. I mean, my team and I, we've been canvassing for the past few weeks, going into neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood. Number one cry, the cost of energy in the Virgin Islands, the cost of energy in the territory, the structure of our educational system, economic development. People are looking for jobs. There's no real creativity out there for anything that happen. And even though we may have that luxury or that mesh between the two, who are they working for? It's seemingly that they haven't been working on behalf of the people and for the people, because there's a whole lot of things that maybe could have been done to do something for the present conditions here in the territory, but there's no real sense of urgency for some reason to get anything done. I mean, WAP has been working, I think, seemingly in a step in the right direction with the solar energy project and maybe switching to propane. I don't necessarily agree with the propane issue, but I mean, if it's something that's going to be real and tangible that will bring the current energy costs down for people, to give people a little extra change in their pockets, change their quality of life for some reason, because as we know, salaries haven't increased for a number of years, but yet the cost of living continues to go up. So the only way that we can rectify that issue right now is to try and start to cut the costs, that will assist, people in the community.
Do you have a plan in place that you have to put in place, or you have to implement regarding energy or bringing down the cost of energy? You had a specific plan.
Well, one of my thoughts on energy really is to work. We have the second largest refinery in the Western Hemisphere here on the South Shore of St. Croix.
So we have.
Well, we have. It's still there. The asset.
It wasn't the second largest. But go ahead.
The second, but the asset is still there,
okay.
Right? They have large production units in there that I don't think we've utilized at the best of our knowledge. We always advocate, whenever we advocate for benefits through EDC, whatever, we always advocate for jobs, but jobs isn't everything. Right now, energy is the number one issue that will affect, that can affect all of us and all our quality if we can get the process done. There's always been the knowledge that Provenza has always wanted when in their existence to connect to the St. Croix grid. Now we're going through a process where they're going to be selling. We have a new buyer coming in, potentially, hopefully soon. And I think that needs to be part of the agreement. How can they assist us to effectuate the community rather than just giving a number of jobs? I mean, jobs are important, yes. But if they can provide us with a low-cost energy source connecting to the St. Croix grid. That affects the quality of life of every resident on St. Croix.
But you're making the assumption that whoever this new buyer is coming in to purchase a refinery and open it as a refinery.
Right.
In the past, Hovenza has rented out portions of the refinery for other industries. We've had different chemicals and whatnot that has been made within the refinery.
Right.
See, my situation where I don't know why everybody seems to be assuming and still thinking that Hovenza is going to be the savior of the territory, because Hovenza, for all intents and purposes, is dead and buried. You cannot, only Jesus had the power to resurrect people, and you cannot resurrect Hovenza. It's gone. Leon Hess died.
Right.
John Hess wanted to get out of it. He got his wish.
Right.
I'm just concerned with everybody coming up and the first thing out the mouth is Hovenza this, Hovenza that, and Hovenza does not exist anymore. It's not there. It's not there. I mean, it's not what it was in its operations. The LLC, what it was in its operations.
They still operate.
Barely, just to make sure that that there's no major release with the chemicals that they had there, so that we here on our island don't die. Okay. Hovenza, let's say now you have a corporation that has nothing to do with chemicals, because it is the shareholders of Hovenza's purview to sell it to whomever. And they're not going into oil refining. They're not going into the energy industry. Then all these plans based on Hovenza, they fall moot.
But those
so
assets are still there.
Yeah, but you can't touch it because it's not necessarily. It's a private industry, but it's a different industry. So that does not necessarily mean that all the assets of Hovenza are going to be used, and that does not necessarily mean that for them as a private owner that they would see that it would be in their best interest of their bottom line to sell it at a loss to this government. So that's just my question. Why is it that everybody is always saying Hovenza this, Hovenza that, as if that's the thing? Because yes, we heard it. Hovenza sent home a lot of people.
But it's not only Hovenza, it's Hovenza or whomever may come in.
But everybody's assuming it's going to be another oil company, and that's the thing that I'm not hearing anybody.
But if
having
they're
a
coming
contingent
in,
plan.
they're still going to negotiate for some type of benefit. And if we're going to negotiate for benefit, you're going to get something, then give us something in return. Don't just offer us jobs.
But that's after they've already finished their negotiations and they're chopping up for the plant or what remains there. We get to deal with it after.
What I would think in your defense that you wouldn't be a part of that negotiating. I mean, you would get the contract when it's done.
When it's done.
And then you would have to decide whether or not to vote for it or not vote for it.
Exactly.
And hopefully whoever's the next governor will have a much better negotiating team than the one we've had now. So we won't have these kinds of issues.
And I would put my issues on the table so that they know what I expect or what I would want or what I would be seeking.
But let me ask you this. What is your plan, your concrete plan for revenue generation of new money, not how we can collect money we're already supposed to have, new money to the territory?
Well, I think the overriding factor that we have to deal with is the energy monster. Because even if we don't deal with the energy monster, it's hard to drive new monies into the Virgin Islands just because of the energy costs. I mean, we have a lot of investors that probably sit on the outskirts wondering how do we survive here on St. Croix with the cost of energy that we have. Not only from a standpoint of residents, because I mean, the commercial industry, they pay higher rates than we do residential. And so we have to deal with that issue first and foremost. Whether we're going to get more aggressive with our renewables, whether it's wind, solar, and hydro, because that needs to be part of the portfolio. We need to drive it even more expansively than we are right now, because we have far more land than they do in St. Thomas, but yet we limit ourselves to the same scope of project that they do on that island. And so if we can drive bigger projects. I mean, when you talk about some of the other islands that are looking to go, by 2020, 100% renewable. I mean, why aren't we heading in that direction more expeditiously? And then we need to put the resources. If in fact we're going to be looking to borrow and bond money, well, let's do something that's going to give all of us a return on that investment.
So let me make sure I understand. So your starting point is that you need to deal with the energy issue. Okay, so let's presume that you've dealt with that. What are your plans for revenue generation? Assume that you've dealt with the energy crises. What are your plans for revenue generation of new money?
Of new money. Once again, I think, far too long we've been hearing about these hotel projects that have been waiting and waiting and waiting. That's an area that we need to look at, because the airlines aren't coming if we don't have more rooms. Now, we always hear people say, well, the hotel's room that we have right now is only 50% occupancy. But having worked in the administration, every time there was a step in the forward movement in the right direction about a hotel possibly getting the funding and the resources to open, the first person that called was the airlines, because they wanted to get the foot in the door. They wanted to have the lead in terms of that story. So I think, hotel rooms is a definite. I mean, over here we deal with casinos. Casinos is only a caveat, because I think if visitors were coming to our shores because of casinos, then I think St. Thomas proves that wrong, because they don't have casinos.
Mr. McGregor, if I may, let's get it correct. We have casino.
Well, we have a casino.
We have casino, and you go to our neighbor, our sister island of St. Thomas. They have VLTs, and
Right.
VLTs is all over the place.
Right.
Now, how do we now maybe expand on the fact that we can attract casinos?
Right.
How do we grow that particular sector of our hotel industry, and maybe grow smaller hotels as well, to build our hotel rooms?
Well, and that's kind of hard to do if you're going to do it around casinos, because we've kind of undermined the Casino Act by amending it at least twice in the past two legislative, 29th and the 30th. 29th expanded the Hotel Development Act, to include hotels that may have been damaged or dilapidated in some form, and expand that out to the territory, right? So that took a portion away from the Hotel Development Act, because the Hotel Development Act was strictly for development of hotels in St. Croix. But when they did that, the first hotel to be now developed or reconstructed is a hotel in St. Thomas.
But
now in the 30th legislature, right? They then further now amended the Hotel Development Act once again to include the construction or development of boutique hotels on outlying islands and keys within the territory. So once again, that took away now from the act that was developed to give some more incentives to hotel developers on St. Croix.
But as part of the present administration, you are a party to the signing, the first signing that took place on the 29th legislature. Am I correct?
Correct.
Correct. So basically, you are a party to that particular law that's presently there.
Specifically for hotel development on St. Croix.
Correct. So the administration that you are part of signed off on it.
Correct.
Now, how do you now go into the legislature and do some of the things that you are party to as part of this present administration?
Well, I think some of the things we need to do is we need to work together and work hard, because we do have, whether you're for one of the hotel developments on the western end of the island, whether you're for that or not, I don't think we've gone far enough, because we've gone through the Army Corps situation under our region, which is in Puerto Rico. Now, why would Puerto Rico, who's one of our competitors, move anything for hotel development on St. Croix of the magnitude of that resort? No, it doesn't give them anything, but yet they're effectuating our commerce here on St. Croix, but yet nobody wants to go over their head to do anything about it. I think first and foremost, we need to do whatever we need to do to go over their heads, to talk to the people on top of them, so that they can in fact move that project forward. Whether the people are for that or not, that's something else, but let us decide our destiny in that area. Let's not be held up by some party on the outside of our shores for that development project.
Are you talking about we need to do this and we need to do that? When you say we, you're talking in terms of who? The government or the legislature?
Talking about the legislature and the government as a whole, because we all need to work together once and for all to move projects in specific to St. Croix to make sure those things have become real and not hold a carrot in front of our face once again.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. You say for specifically St. Croix. How do you intend to do that? With historically speaking, projects are basically going to St. Thomas. So St. Thomas agenda is getting pushed forward, historically speaking, on a regular basis. St. Croix is always left behind. No. We know that Democrats.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough seats at the table most of the time. That's what happens.
Why do you think that is?
Structure on how we're set.
Okay, so you understand structure?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I believe I do, and I think we need to look in the right direction. One of the things I'd like to do, because we talk about a constitution, but once and for all, let's get a constitution. I think we've been through 5 tries at getting one.
Correct.
And we've failed 5 times, and we've moved so far away.
You failed the 5th time?
I don't know if we failed. I don't think we failed. I think that it was used as a political tool for the election.
I think so.
And so I don't think it was a failure. I think the document that they had was a fairly decent document. I think that what happened with that document was that if people were plainly misled as to the effect and content of the document, and it was done for purposes of re-election.
Right.
And so I don't think it was a failure. I think those people worked hard.
They did.
And in any constitution, you're going to have people who will like everything that's in there or like what's in there, and some who won't.
Right.
And when I constantly heard people talk about the federal constitution, how wonderful it was, I had to keep reminding them, if you go read it, in there it says that I'm 3/5 of a person.
That's right.
And so while that's no longer, I mean, people don't look at that anymore,
Right.
but that's what it says. I'm sure that none of us would have agreed that that should be in the document.
Right.
And so I don't think it was a failure. I think it was more hijacked for purposes of electing, because all people did was pit certain members of our community against the others for purposes of getting into office. I wouldn't say it failed.
Okay.
I would more say that it was hijacked for political purposes.
And that's fine.
Let me ask you this question. You spoke earlier.
You know, answer my
I'm
question.
sorry.
No, but, well,
I'm sorry.
my thought is that we, you know, because of the magnitude of the issue and what we face, one of my thoughts is that we should adopt the Organic Act as our constitution, and then we can change it or amend it as we see fit to make the pieces come together to justify us as a people and us as a constitution. And I think that may be the easiest form, because, you know, we're basically the melting pot of the Caribbean. Are we going to satisfy everyone? No. We have the political implications.
We're not a melting pot.
I was just about to say that. They say we're a melting pot, we're a salad bowl, but
We're not a
now you
melting
have
pot.
section. Everything's still
We're a salad bowl.
identifiable. Or
Right.
everyone is still identifiable. So we melting nothing.
Because
but
we're electing presidents from Santo Domingo, for the Dominican Republic, right over there in Richmond. So we're not a melting pot.
Right.
But go ahead. I'm sorry. I digress.
Right, but we're not going to effectuate change in the manner that we want it to change, and in the dynamics that we want it. So, you know, I think we have to look out for the best interests of.
So you think by addressing the Constitution or adapting the Organic Act, we could use that and amend it in terms of changing the current legislative structure? Is what you're saying?
I believe we can.
Okay.
Because
so you're for
because
changing the structure?
I'm for changing the structure, because I mean we have 2 districts right now,
Correct.
St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix.
Right.
So in all intents and purposes, they have 8 representatives. We have 7.
Okay.
You know, within the dynamics that we have of the structure as we currently have it, I mean, we have a majority and minority.
And that's why you see they
we
always get
we
behind.
are always, for some reason, in the minority. Even though we have members in the majority, we're a minority within a majority. So I mean, they have to work together. Do they always work together for the best interest of St. Croix? Well, I think we see the
And
effects.
how?
of
What
what's
structure
that.
will you support then? What structural change in legislation will you support?
Well, I support district senators. I support at large, or a combination of both.
District senators.
And that brings
okay.
that brings accountability to the voter.
So would you go back to the original way that we had it of 11? Well, it doesn't have to be 11, but where there was a larger amount of at-large senators.
Right.
That was like the checks and balance of the district senators. Would you support that?
I would support that.
Okay.
All right.
Let me ask my question as quick as, because you're probably only be able to get yes or no. Are you in favor, yes or no, of the legalization of marijuana? Since you spoke about revenue generation
No.
before. No?
Okay. You want to tell us why?
A former teacher, I see the effects of marijuana in the classroom.
Okay.
It doesn't bode well for our students. I don't think it bodes well for our community, because I see a number of our people on the streets that are affected. I mean, people call it the gateway drug to harder drugs, but whether it's a gateway or not, you know, I think it affects our people negatively, and it doesn't. You know, for me, you know, I can't support that. What I can support though is looking at the medical marijuana issue, because I think, you know, with some of the critical issues that some of our people face in the medical area, I can support that. I can see how that could assist and lend in the medical field. I can also support the decriminalization of marijuana, because I see too much of our people being disenfranchised for small amounts of drugs or non-violent crimes and being locked up. We spend far too much money in the judicial system and not enough money in education. We need to flip that around.
Now, before we go, I know we run out of time, but I want to ask you 3 quick questions. I see we can answer it rather quickly, hopefully. 1, what is your stance on the current education system? Do you support us giving more governance to the Board of Education as opposed to where we have it with the, with the Commission of Education?
We definitely do. We need to give more governance to the Board of Education.
Okay.
Those are the people that we elect. We elect those members. So they are accountable to us. And I believe the board should have more accountability within the Department of Education. So to that end, I think the board should be hiring our superintendent of schools.
Okay. So now, what about healthcare? How do you feel, what would be your plan to deal with the issues that we have currently with our healthcare system, and to hopefully get people to remain in the territory, that they don't have to leave to get adequate healthcare?
Well, I believe even if you stay, you can get adequate health care. I mean, I've had an older uncle that was just recently in the hospital within the last year. Excellent care. I mean, I couldn't tell the difference whether or not he was here or in Cleveland Clinic, because we did go to Cleveland Clinic on a follow-up, and the care he received there was the same type of care that he got here. The same results that he got here were the same results he got there. And so, you know, I think it's a comfort level. We have to give our residents the comfort that we do have good care here. We do have good doctors here. We may not have the specialized care that some people maybe look for, and I think we may need a partnership with some of the hospitals. I may not love a partnership with Cleveland Clinic. I'd love a partnership with Mayo Clinic, where doctors would come down and visit our local hospitals and provide services on a specialty care level that some of our residents need. I think that's an option we do. But one of the things that I think that really harms us is the unfunded care that we get, uninsured. There's too many uninsured residents that seek care at our hospitals.
And finally, crime. You know, we've been having shootings and murders almost every weekend, at least in the St. Thomas, St. John district. What are your plans to, or what do you have or you envision to curtail our crime issue?
Well, one of the things that, you know, my focus really too, one of my focuses on my platform is also education. I mean, it's education is long term and long range, so it really doesn't cure, because I believe we also have some lost generations in there that seemingly have no hope. I mean, we have too many of our children that have, you know, either dropped out of high school, dropped out of junior high, or even graduated from high school, but still don't have the skills, you know, to land a job, a decent job, a wage-earned job, you know, and, you know, can't even leave the island because of that comfort level. They have the fear, and so they remain here, and because the job opportunities aren't available for them, you know, they find themselves probably getting involved in criminal activity. I meet them every day when I walk the streets, and only one thing leads to the next. And so I think we have to, again, put our resources in education, make sure that our children, you know, can read, write, add, subtract, multiply, divide, fundamentally basic areas, to give them the resources that they need that will carry them through life. We have too many children coming even out of 4th grade, because we have this so-called non-fail policy where a child can go from 1 to 4th grade without failure, but when you get to 5th and 6th, then you start to, because, you know, the teachers then continue to pass them along. Little Johnny is a troublemaker, so we're going to pass him along, and he's not getting the adequate assistance from the educational standpoint that he needs. But if we can drive education as an important ingredient in our society, I think in the long range that cures our criminal activity in our community, because as you know, at least 90% of the people in Golden Grove can't read or write, haven't gotten a high school diploma. And so education is a key element in hopefully deterring that criminal element in the future.
Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I would like for you to let everybody know where they can find you if they have more questions for you and they want to talk a little bit more about you before the election, and let us know what your number is for the August 2nd primary.
Sure. Once again, my name is Malcolm McGregor. It's number 6 on the primary ballot, August 2nd. If you need to contact me, my number is 643-3561. And I can be also found on Facebook at malcolm.mcgregor for Senate 2014.
Thank you so much. And we'll be back in a moment.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you. Don't lose hope.
No, sir.
Don't lose hope.
Good evening and welcome back to VI Voices. We have with us now Adelbert Bert Bryan, who's no stranger to our public and no stranger to politics, as he was a former senator and now currently sits on the Board of Elections for the St. Croix District, and he is seeking re-election to the Board of Elections. Welcome. And you are in the November 4th ballot, correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct. So you're going straight to the general election.
Yes, sir.
In an earlier show, we talked about a lot of the things that's been going on with our election system, and particularly we talked about the change in armor guard between Abramson and now we have Fox. And a lot of the issues have been coming up, which a lot of challenges, and where I think I'm really happy for the challenges because that's what makes a democracy. But one of the things that concerned all of us was this issue of the shredding of the police records that came into the office. And we've had two sides. We had Atora Rotlington and St. Thomas St. John District arguing that it was proper because she could get sued if she didn't do it. And then we had, I saw in the paper, Kevin Rames writing that it is a public document that should not have been shredded and there are issues. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, from my background in law enforcement, records mean records. If you look in the Black's Law Dictionary, it defines records. So anything that is written, stored, has information in it, has a responsibility to be stored or kept. So when we speak about the Board of Election and the issue of shredding, I do not know, and I was not there when a particular record was shredded. So therefore, the requirement for candidate information sheet asks candidates to supply a police record along with the information that is there. It's written right on the bottom, asking the candidate to submit this police record. It could have gone about in many ways. As an agency, the election system could have probably out the AG's office that has the authority to get police records of individuals, or NCIC check if they want to do that. But to save some money, the Board of Election each allowed the election candidates seeking election to provide their police record. Now we must understand there's a distinct difference between a police record and an affidavit. I and you can write anything as an affidavit and call it a record, because I say what I want and put what I want in there and have it notarized in the presence of a notary. But when you get an official document as a case of police record or criminal record, you might have your arrest, your disposition, guilty, not guilty, case dismissed with a whole complete. You must understand also that in the virginals or the way the police department operates sometimes, they might only have police records for misdemeanors or police cases where the police might keep an arrest involved. If you move on a federal level, you might have records kept by the Justice Department, the FBI. So it comes down to where you procure the police record from. So then, if the supervisor of election asks for you to provide you the police records, you bring a police record. I am not one of those to review it until there's a time to challenge the candidacy, because the law requires a person to be first an eligible voter. You must meet certain requirements, and you cannot determine the eligibility of a person to be a voter without a police record. Likewise, on the revised Organic Act of 1954 as amended, the requirement in order to be elected public office, you must meet certain criteria. So the only way the election system can determine the eligibility of a person to be a registered voter or public office holder, that record must come from the appropriate agency that is required by law to keep the record.
So, former Senator Bryan, so if we follow your train of thought, you're saying procedurally, Supervisor Fox committed an error.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying she committed an error. I am not the final arbiter in that situation. I'm saying when the time comes, we have a hearing scheduled Friday coming here. So it would be prudent on my part as the chairman to wait until the hearing comes to find out if in fact what the newspaper said she said is what happened. Okay. The newspaper is only reporting what they believe she said, and we know how the media works sometimes.
Correct.
They sell their papers for 75 cents or $1. But if it comes to the fact that she shed the record, I am the chairman of the District Board of St. Croix. When the decision is made, the board will have to decide if she acted appropriately to shred the documents or not, because the law requires any related information as it goes to election, which the police record will have been a part, must be kept within a 2-year span. So if that record is destroyed or shredded or mailed back, that is when you really find out, when we ask her how many and where she sent them and what she did with them. Because she herself must tell the board now and not the media what she really did.
Let me ask you a question. You said that on the bottom of the election packet, it said that they must provide a police record.
Yeah, asked for that.
Is that something that has always been there, or is this something new that just happened?
It was there before. because I recall when I got there, I noticed they had a problem with the process, where they had candidate information, and they had the names, and they put a provision there, put your legal name as registered with the Board of Election. Because my contention was that when Mr. Kennedy ran for president, he didn't run as Jack Kennedy, he ran as John Fitzgerald. Mr. What's the name? Clinton, he ran as William Clinton. He didn't run as Bill Clinton, and likewise here. But they had a practice that they did before, where a U.S. attorney some years ago allowed people to use their names and nicknames, and I think the court determined that a nickname is a name that is accepted, and since it was past practice, they would continue to do that. But I'm saying if that's the case, then you don't need to really register with your name when you bring a passport or birth certificate, and they figure they know you better because you call me Bert Bryan as opposed to some other name. But I think Bert is a name. But still, in this instance, I would have to wait as a member of the board to determine, when questioning in his facts, what she really did or what caused her to do that. You must understand that the Board of Election have an attorney assigned to advise the members, and sometimes the attorneys will tell certain individuals what to do. Like if you look at her statement, I think she said she spoke with an attorney. She didn't say which attorney told her. But then right at the bottom you see Mr. Fraser say he didn't know what document she shredded. So you have a discrepancy from the same office coming as to what was done. And if she takes her advice from the Assistant Attorney General, whoever he or she was, then she'll be able to tell us which attorney told her and guided her what to do with those documents. I wasn't the one that told her to shred anything, because I don't think it was a meeting where I attended or chaired that we decided we were going to shred police record. Each candidate was required to bring a police record to turn it in to the system.
The documents in St. Thomas and the documents in St. Croix is the same thing? Is the same requirements in St. Thomas? Well,
I really can't speak to that.
in terms of...
But I know the old form that was there had right to the bottom.
In St. Thomas as well?
Record. I don't recall seeing that.
Okay.
But I know for a fact, they even had a note on there for major and public examination right under there. And at the appropriate time we'd find that out. But
Now, one of the reasons that the last time you were here, you ran for office, and you were running for Board of Elections, and you got in to it. And one of the reasons you ran because you wanted to be more involved in the issues that was happening there and try to make some corrections. Do you think that you've been successful in making the lot of changes that you wanted to make in your time at the Board of Elections?
well, not really, because you're dealing with a force of individuals that had in the past practice, had their own way and set in their own ways of doing certain things, whatever the past practices were. So therefore, being they new, I can only make motions or add suggestions. And when I read the Inspector General report, in the Inspector General report, they made a reference to certain discrepancies, like not keeping hearings or complaints. My position as the chairman, once I receive a complaint from anybody, my responsibility, according to Title 1848, subsection 47, it tells me what the board have the authority to do, and I must respond to allow anybody, candidate or public, for a hearing to make a recommendation of findings to the appropriate authority. When I do that portion, I've satisfied my obligation as a board member and the chairman of the board. I can't just say, well, I'm not listening to that because I don't like he or she. My responsibility under the law is to have a hearing and we find out what is taking place. So it is probably my position that it should not have happened. But as I said, I don't know what happened there except what I read in the paper. And I know my police record was thrown in and I don't have it back. I have copies of it. But if she said she mailed them out and shredded some, we would know who was shredded and who was going back and who asked for them.
Now let me ask you this now. Now you're seeking re-election.
Yeah.
Now what do you envision you being able to do? If you are re-elected, what do you envision that you want to see the office move to?
Well, I want to see the office in this instance that we're doing right now with the new election machines. Because we have a system now that is known as an independent paper audit trail. So you have two.
And you were instrumental in making sure that got here.
I was in the committee of selecting those because I attended some conferences and some workshops where they were demonstrating these machines in conjunction with the law requiring you have a EAC certified machine that has an independent paper audit trail. Now with this system we have a ballot. You can mark it in a booth or you can mark it by an automatic machine. You have a way of looking at the ballot again before you cast your ballot. when you take that ballot and you stick it in a DS200, it tells you if you made a mistake, you can get back that ballot, you get another ballot. Before you had a machine, you just touch a button and it was gone. But you really couldn't compare because you were just reading a piece of cartridge from producer result. So this system now, we have a comparative where you can cross-examine your results from a tape, from a drum drive, and from the bus.
I have a question. In the past, I believe I questioned Supervisor Abramson, former Supervisor Abramson, and asked him about no votes. Like, for instance, I got a ballot, I don't fill it out, but I go to the machine and I cast it. And he told me that no votes don't count.
Because you don't have a person you voted for. You didn't write nobody in, so it's a blank ballot.
So but why shouldn't they count as part of the process? As my way of saying that I don't agree with any candidate on the ballot?
Well, if you have a portion to write in, you have to find somebody. You should find somebody you want to write in. But if you don't agree with nobody, you just meet the requirements to be eligible to go on a jury.
But I cast my vote as a blank ballot. And
a vote, you have to determine and define what's a no vote and a blank ballot. And
okay.
A blank ballot doesn't have any information on there. So what is the no or what is the yes?
Okay.
So maybe we need to have the laws changed to have empty ballots counted as a no vote, as maybe we need to have the laws changed to require seniors to vote early.
Mm-hmm.
You have 9 conditions for absentee ballot, but you don't find a section in it that says seniors can vote early. So why are we now still in this day and age allowing seniors to stand in a line whether they can come in early with a family or friend and vote? Right now we have a provision, we are allowing the Correction Bureau to be notified that people who are in custody that haven't gone to trial or waiting trial are eligible to vote. And they don't probably know that all the time. If I'm in detention for hearing or trial and I'm a registered voter, I should be entitled by law to get an absentee ballot and vote. A lot of people sometimes in being held for years, sometimes without a trial, and they ain't convicted of anything.
So basically you're talking about advocacy
yes,
on the
sir.
part of the board and hoping to continue to advance advocacy throughout the community and maybe change some of the laws.
I hope so, but you must understand too that the Board of Election can only make recommendations to the legislature. If the legislature and the senators don't feel like changing the law, it will remain. You look at the ballot right now, right? They tell you select a party. A person go there don't understand would think that's no party they registered with. So if you push a party button, you don't realize you're selecting all the candidates in a particular party. So the machines are designed and the programs are written on a crypto system to tell you, you make an error, you overvoted, you can get back your ballot, but you voted for too many candidates.
Okay.
Those are changes that we need to have along with all the votes, because if you have absentee voting, right? Are you going to wait till tomorrow? You vote today. What's the difference if people 2 or 3 weeks before election do the same thing that you did a month ago?
Correct.
Because it still votes.
No, let me ask you a scenario, because I think on like August 2nd, I believe I'm going to be in the territory but out of district. Am I allowed to go into St. Thomas and vote?
Probably, if they can verify that you're there. They must verify that you're a registered voter. Probably to vote provisional or vote early. If you know you're going to go away, you have a provisional ballot, right.
But even so, do they also have provisional ballots for the other district?
Well, all provisional ballots have the same thing. They would know when he voted with it that his provisional ballot was assigned.
No. I mean,
I mean a provisional ballot.
I mean, he's from St. Croix,
Yeah.
and so the candidates of St. Croix will be different from the candidates of St. Thomas.
Yeah.
So if he's in St. Thomas
Right.
and he can't make it over,
He
will
will
they
have-
be St. Croix
they will-
ballots
yeah,
in
sure,
St.
they
Thomas?
will have that.
Okay.
But then, since he knew he's going to be out of the territory and the island out of his district, he could go in early vote because it tells you in a provision that you can vote early.
Okay.
Let me ask, what is the or what would be your plan in terms of trying to increase voter registration, especially amongst, because we were discussing this earlier, like the 18 to 25-year-olds. You know,
Well,
those are the ones that feel disenfranchised.
You know something might sound a little harsh, but if a person can get a driver's license at 16, when they make 18 years and get to renew their license, it should be a requirement to get a voter registration card delivered to you right by the police station. Because your voter registration card does not have an expiration date.
Right.
Your driver's license have a coded system in there. So if you get a driver's license when you renew it at 18, you in time get your voter registration card and your driver's license at the same time. And another condition, you have a lot of people in human services program. There's no requirement that you have a voter registration card to receive federal assistance in whether the food stamp program or light or anything. So there's a continuous program we encourage a condition for these services, then you have a voter registration card as a recipient for your food stamp program, as well as having a voter registration card to vote, and you might encourage more people to be involved in voting. But the early education of the process of voting is need to be put in school, because you hear people say, I ain't voting, nobody doing anything. The question we need to ask, what are you doing for yourself to help somebody help you? So.
And have you been having, which I'm sure, but this is a rhetorical question, but you know, the difficulty that you've had to deal with some of the other board members, both in our district and in the St. John district, in getting these parties going forward?
Well, because I'm saying if you look at the Virginia School is written for election, the way the laws are written was designed basically at the advantage and a disadvantage for certain parties in the Virginia. Because you must remember, you have the law requiring, in order to have a political party recognized, they must have X amount of voters to be recognized as a political party. And you find people registered as no party and independent, that number probably supersedes some of the political parties. But then they go and they vote. And maybe I think that's why one of the senators was suggesting to have a runoff election or primary for no party. But no party means no party, and until the legislature changes the law, it remains as an independent candidate, because you don't find a candidate on the ballot as a no party, you find them by law as an independent.
Let me ask another question. In terms of election reform, what would be, in your estimation, the ideal bill that would come forward from the election board to put forward to the Senate to try to push for election reform? What one major point, you've dealt with the machines, but other than that, what one major point you would like to see happen or that you would push forward in the next?
Well, to reform an instance of early voting and extend an application for absentee ballot to seniors, because that is not an absentee application. You have about 9 categories, and senior citizens are not the beneficiary of that.
I like that.
That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
But wasn't there already, wasn't that vetoed? By the
No,
governor,
well,
the early voting
What
thing?
happened, there was a bill for early voting, and I think Senator Cole and some senators get caught up in asking about election to buy new machine with a push button. So when they joined that bill together, the governor vetoed the whole bill.
Okay.
And since there was not appropriation on the bill, he couldn't line anything. So it came as one to have to override it. If they haven't override it yet, for them to do anything right now, they have to do an amendment to, like, notwithstanding Title 18, Chapter 1, Subsection 6, early voting is authorized in the voters hereafter this date. And if he tells them, you have 10 days to override it, because you're doing an amendment within 6 months of election. And they done it to the bill, I think the was 6009, where they reinstated thousands of cancelled voters to vote in a general and primary election. So it can be done. It depends on what the senators want to do.
So while we're wrapping up, let us know where they can find you. If they want to talk a little bit more about the election process and what you're doing for elections, where they can find you for meetings. Let our audience know.
Well, they can find many places. I'm like a walkabout person. But in all reality, we have district board meetings on the first Wednesday of every month from 9:30. The public is invited. And when the agenda is finished, we have an agenda for the roll call, visitors, supervisory report, secretary's report, and everything. And after that, we go into agenda. We have 15 minutes in St. Croix for people in the audience to ask questions and make suggestions. So they can find me anytime, every Wednesday, unless there's a special meeting or emergency meeting.
Now you're in the general election, so you're not in the primary.
No,
so
sir.
we have a primary going on, and we'll have to wait to see who comes out of that primary, which means at the end we'll have you all come back when we do that group after the primary election and we go forward. So I thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thank you, no problem.
And once again, I want to make sure that all of you understand the importance of going out and voting. It is extremely important. We are at a critical stage in our community, a critical election 2014. And I know that we've been saying that we have critical elections every time we have an election. But I do believe, honestly, that the 2014 election is probably the most critical election that we're going to have, because, again, it is going to determine where we go as a community, who our leaders will be, whether or not we're going to go to the left or go to the right, or whether or not we're going to have a community that's going to increase our ability to do better as a community. and that we're able to make sound decisions and have people to make sound decisions. And the best way for that to happen is for you to be informed, for you to be educated, and for you to go out and vote because your vote, in fact, matters.
If I may, Mr. Council, I think I use a reference to the treadmill mentality. A lot of people have to understand that as long as you stay in the treadmill, the only thing that is moving is your feet and your hands. The machine is still the same place. So until we get off the treadmill and move in another direction, we'll be doing the same things. This is the first time the Board of Election in the islands have an administrative assistant. They never had one before. So that's another change that we had. So
awesome.
If they move up the treadmill, then they could do something. A lot of people don't want to get off the treadmill mentality because they believe they fall down. They can't get up and move on their own again. So waiting for the same so that people do the same thing for you all the time that you could do for yourself will help a lot.
Absolutely. So please make sure that your voices are heard because it does make a difference. Good night, everybody.